There is a woman I want to tell you about before we go any further. Her name was Helen, and when she first came to sit across from me, she had the look of someone who had been fighting a war for a very long time and had finally run out of ammunition. She was 52 years old, a schoolteacher, a woman of deep faith, and she had been asking God for the same thing for 7 years. 7 years of kneeling beside her bed, 7 years of folded hands and whispered pleas. She wanted to be free from the chronic pain that had taken over her body, stolen her sleep, and slowly dismantled the life she had built for herself. Every morning she woke up and prayed. Every night she begged, and every day the pain was still there, sometimes worse than the day before. When she looked at me, she didn't even ask a question at first. She simply said, "Dr. Murphy, I don't understand. I believe in God. I have always believed. So why does it feel like he has stopped believing in me?" I sat with that question for a moment before I answered her, because what I was about to say would either make complete sense to her or sound like the strangest thing she had ever heard. I said, "Helen, God has not stopped believing in you. But I want to ask you something. In all of these 7 years of prayer, have you ever once truly felt, that the healing was already done?" She looked at me quietly. She said, "No. Every time I pray, I feel the pain. I feel the fear. I feel the desperation." And I said, "Then that is exactly what you have been praying for." Her expression changed completely. And in the next few weeks, so did her life. I want you to stay with me today because what I am going to share with you is not a new idea. It is an ancient one. It is the idea that has been buried under centuries of religious misunderstanding, and yet it is so simple, so precise, so perfectly aligned with how your mind actually works, that once you understand it, you will never pray the same way again. You will move from a place of asking to a place of knowing, and that movement, that internal shift, is the difference between a life of quiet waiting and a life of constant demonstration. For over 3 decades, I have studied the relationship between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the infinite intelligence that works through both. I have sat with thousands of people, businessmen who had lost everything, mothers who were losing their children to darkness, young men and women who felt invisible to God, invisible to life itself. And in every single case, without exception, the problem was never that God was withholding. The problem was that the person had never learned the difference between asking and knowing, between petition and acceptance, between wanting and receiving. Today I am going to walk you through that difference with absolute clarity. I am going to show you why the prayer of petition, the prayer most of us were taught as children, actually works against you at the level of your subconscious mind. And I am going to give you the method, the divine method of receiving what is already yours, not someday. Now, let us begin with something foundational, something that will reframe everything else I say today. Your subconscious mind does not understand the word want. Read that again slowly. Your subconscious mind does not understand the word want. When you say to God, to the universe, to the infinite intelligence within you, "I want health, I want money, I want love," your subconscious mind hears only one thing. It hears the state you are currently in. It hears the feeling beneath the words. And the feeling beneath the word want is always lack. It is always absence. It is always not yet, not now, not mine. And your subconscious, being the most faithful and obedient servant you have ever been given, simply agrees with you. It says, "Yes, you are right. You do not have it." And then it goes to work creating more circumstances that confirm exactly that. This is not a punishment. This is not God ignoring you. This is law. The same law that governs how a seed becomes a tree, the same law that governs how a thought becomes a thing. It is impersonal, consistent, and it operates whether you understand it or not. The question is never whether the law is working. The law is always working. The question is what you are feeding it. Now I want to tell you about a man named Thomas. Thomas was 44 years old when he came to see me, and he was, by any external measure, a successful man. He had built a small manufacturing business over 15 years. He had a home, a family, employees who depended on him. But inside, Thomas was terrified. A larger competitor had entered his market and was systematically destroying his customer base. Within 8 months he had lost 60% of his revenue. His accountant told him he had perhaps 4 months before the business would have to close entirely. Thomas was not a man who prayed regularly, but desperation has a way of driving us to our knees. He began to pray every morning. God, please send me new customers. God, please stop this from happening. God, please show me a way out. God, I need this business to survive. He prayed with intensity. He prayed with what he believed was faith. He told me he sometimes prayed for an hour at a time, and nothing changed. When he came to see me, he was not broken the way some people are broken. He was something more dangerous. He was certain that he had been abandoned. He said, I have done everything right. I prayed, I believed, I worked hard, and none of it matters. The universe simply does not care about me. I asked him what I ask everyone. I said, Thomas, when you pray, what do you feel? He said, I feel the walls closing in. I feel the weight of everyone depending on me. I feel like I am drowning and the rope just will not come. And I said, then that is the prayer your subconscious has been receiving, not the words, the feeling. Every single morning for 8 months, you have gone to your deeper mind and you have impressed it with the feeling of walls closing in, of drowning, of pressure and failure and loss. And your subconscious, faithful as always, has been working with extraordinary diligence to create the outer conditions that match that inner feeling. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, so I made it worse. I said, you did not make it worse intentionally. But yes, the prayer you were praying was not the prayer with thought you were praying. I gave Thomas a completely different instruction. I said, tonight, before you sleep, I do not want you to think about the business. I do not want you to ask for customers or revenue or survival. I want you to do something that will feel strange at first. I want you to imagine sitting at your desk in your office and feeling deeply, genuinely at peace. Not because a problem was solved. Not because money arrived. Simply the feeling of a man who knows that everything is working in his favor. A man who has no anxiety about tomorrow because he knows with a certainty deeper than logic that infinite intelligence is arranging everything on his behalf right now. I want you to feel that peace. I want you to feel that knowing. And I want you to fall asleep inside that feeling. Thomas looked at me the way most people look at me when I say this. Like I have suggested something slightly ridiculous. But he was desperate enough to try. He came back to see me 3 weeks later. In the second week, a former customer he had not spoken to in 6 years called him out of nowhere. They needed a supplier. They had heard his competitor had quality issues. Within 10 days, that one conversation had turned into a contract worth more than anything Thomas had lost. And 2 more inquiries had come through channels he could not explain or trace. He sat across from me with an expression I have seen many times. The expression of a man who has just discovered that the universe was never against him. It was simply waiting for him to stop broadcasting fear so it could deliver what was already prepared. This is the divine method of receiving. It is not passive, it is not wishful thinking, it is the most precise and deliberate act a human being can perform. It is the conscious choosing of a feeling state and the persistent maintenance of that state until the outer world conforms to the inner reality you have established. Now I need to explain something about the word knowing because it is the heart of everything I am teaching you today. There is a profound difference between hoping, believing, and knowing. Most people operate at the level of hoping. They hope things will get better. They hope God will answer. They hope the situation will change. Hope is weak. Hope always contains doubt inside it. Hope says, maybe it will happen, and your subconscious hears the maybe and builds from there. Some people move up to believing. Believing is stronger than hoping, but even believing often contains a quiet whisper of uncertainty. I believe it will happen, but part of me is not sure, and your subconscious again hears the uncertainty and works from there. Knowing is something entirely different. Knowing is a settled, quiet, unshakable internal certainty that something is already true. Not that it will be true, that it is true. Right now. In the realm of infinite intelligence, In the creative medium of your subconscious mind, it is already done. Knowing does not look for evidence. Knowing does not check the bank account to see if the money arrived. Knowing does not watch the body for signs of healing. Knowing simply is. And from that place of is, your outer world must eventually rearrange itself to reflect what you have already established as true within. I want to tell you about a young woman named Priya. She was 31 years old, a nurse, and she came to me not about her health or her finances, but about something she found almost embarrassing to discuss. She had been deeply, sincerely, profoundly lonely for most of her adult life. She had tried everything. Every approach the modern world offers to solve that particular ache, and nothing had worked. When she finally told me the truth of what she wanted, which was simply to love someone and be loved fully in return, she said it with a kind of exhausted shame, as if wanting that made her small somehow. I said, Priya, that is not a small want. That is the most ancient human need that exists, and I want to know something. When you think about love, when you imagine having a relationship, what do you feel? She said, I feel the absence of it. I feel the loneliness more sharply, not less, I said. And that is exactly what you have been praying for, whether you used those words or not. Every time you have reached for love in your imagination and landed in the feeling of loneliness, you have impressed that loneliness on your subconscious mind. And your subconscious, with perfect obedience, has built your circumstances from that impression. I gave Priya a specific instruction. I said, every night before you sleep, I want you to create one simple feeling. Not an image necessarily, though that can help. Just a feeling. The feeling of lying quietly at the end of a good day and feeling the warmth of someone who genuinely knows you and genuinely loves you. Not the drama of romance. Not the beginning of something. The settled, comfortable, beautiful warmth of already being loved, of already belonging to someone and having them belong to you. Just that warmth. Hold it until you drift to sleep inside it. She did. For 6 weeks she did this every single night without exception. In the 7th week, through a circumstance so ordinary that no novelist would bother to write it, she met someone. Not in a dramatic location. At a community event she almost did not attend because she was tired. Today, 2 years later, she describes that relationship as the most natural and whole thing in her life. She told me, Dr. Murphy, I did not find love. I became someone who already had it. And then it showed up. That is the method. You do not find the thing you desire by searching for it in the external world. You become, in your consciousness, in your feeling state, in your deep subconscious impression, someone who already has it. And then life law, infinite intelligence, call it what you will, arranges the outer circumstances to match the inner truth you have established. Now, let me address the objection I know is sitting in your mind right now, because I have been teaching this long enough to know exactly what you are thinking. You are thinking, Dr. Murphy, this sounds like self-deception. It sounds like I am pretending, like I am telling myself a lie and hoping the lie becomes true. And I want to meet that objection directly and completely. You are not deceiving yourself. You are instructing yourself. There is a profound difference. When a doctor gives a patient a new protocol, the patient does not yet feel healthy, but they follow the protocol with discipline and faith because they understand that the protocol creates the conditions for health to emerge. What I am giving you is a protocol for your mind. You are not pretending the money is in the bank. You are impressing the feeling of financial wholeness on the most powerful creative medium you possess, your subconscious mind, so that your subconscious can begin to build the outer circumstances that will make the bank account reflect what you have already established as true within. The feeling comes first. The evidence follows. This is always the sequence. This has always been the sequence. Your outer world is always the evidence of your inner world. It is always the effect, never the cause. The great error of most people's lives is that they wait for the outer evidence to change before they allow the inner feeling to shift. They say, I will feel abundant when the money comes. I will feel healthy when the pain stops. I will feel loved when the relationship arrives. And in saying this, they have it exactly backwards. The feeling of abundance is what summons the money. The feeling of health is what creates the conditions for healing. The feeling of being loved is what draws love. You must give the feeling first, without the outer evidence, and the outer evidence will follow. This is the divine method. This is knowing rather than asking. I want to share something personal with you now, because I think it matters that you understand this principle has been tested in my own life, not just in the lives of the people who have come to me. Years ago, early in my work, I faced a crisis that shook my confidence deeply. I had been invited to speak at a significant gathering, an opportunity that would have opened doors I had been working toward for many years. 3 days before the event, through a series of misunderstandings completely outside my control, I was told the invitation had been withdrawn. I will not pretend I did not feel the sting of that. I did. I sat with the disappointment for an hour. I allowed myself to feel it fully. And then I made a decision. I said to myself, I am not going to impress my subconscious with rejection. I am going to impress it with rightful place, with the knowing that infinite intelligence always places me exactly where I am meant to be, and that no human misunderstanding can override divine order. That evening I sat quietly and I held not a specific image of a specific event, but the feeling of a man in his right place, of someone whose work is reaching exactly the people it is meant to reach. I held that feeling until it was real to me, until it was not something I was hoping for but something I knew. Within 48 hours, an invitation arrived from a different organization for a different event that turned out to be 3 times more significant than the one I had lost. I did not manufacture that outcome. I did not manipulate anyone. I simply refused to impress my subconscious with the feeling of loss, and instead impressed it with the feeling of rightness, of divine order, of knowing. And the law did what the law always does. It delivered the outer circumstance that matched the inner conviction. Now I want to give you the precise practice. The actual method you can begin tonight, because teaching without practical instruction is incomplete, and I will not leave you with only philosophy. The first thing I want you to understand is that the most powerful moment of your entire day, the moment when your subconscious is most open, most receptive, most impressionable, is the 5 to 10 minutes just before you fall asleep at night. In those final moments, your conscious mind begins to release its grip. The critical, analytical, doubting part of your thinking relaxes, and your subconscious becomes almost entirely receptive. Whatever you impress upon it in those moments goes deep, goes clean, goes directly into the creative medium without the interference of doubt or logic. This is your moment. This is the moment you have been wasting by scrolling through your phone, by reviewing the problems of the day, by worrying about tomorrow. This is the most sacred time of your 24 hours, and I want you to begin treating it that way. Here is what you do. As you lie down tonight, before sleep comes, you are going to choose one thing, one desire, one area of your life you want to transform. Do not try to work on everything at once. Choose one, and then I want you to feel it already complete. Not visualize it happening. Not watch yourself receiving it. Feel what it would feel like to already be living inside the answered reality. If it is health, feel what your body feels like when it is whole. When you move through a day without pain, without fear, without limitation, feel the freedom of it. If it is financial wholeness, feel the feeling of someone who has more than enough, not the excitement of sudden wealth. The quiet, deep, settled feeling of a person who knows without any anxiety that their needs are always met and their life is always abundant. If it is peace in a relationship, feel what it feels like to sit in a room with that person and feel only warmth, only ease, only the naturalness of two people who genuinely belong in each other's lives. Whatever it is, go to the feeling of already having it, not wanting it, not asking for it, already having it, and persist in that feeling. Let it fill you. Let it become the last conscious experience you have before sleep takes you. Do this every single night, without exception, without checking for results the next morning, without negotiating with God about timing. Simply do it. Persist in it. Trust it. The second practice I want to give you is what I call the midday return. Throughout your day, you will be pulled back into the old feeling. Something will happen, a bill will arrive, a symptom will flare, a person will disappoint you, and your consciousness will be dragged back toward the old state of lack or fear or need. This is normal. This is not failure. This is simply the old pattern asserting itself. Your only job when this happens is to notice it and return. Return to the knowing. It does not need to be a long practice. Even 30 seconds of returning to the feeling of the wish already fulfilled, already yours, already complete, is enough to re-impression your subconscious in that moment. Think of it as tending a garden. You do not water it once and walk away forever. You return to it, you give it consistent care, and with that care it grows. The third practice I want you to adopt is what I call conscious gratitude from completion. Not gratitude for what you hope will come. Gratitude for what you know is already true in divine mind. When you wake in the morning, before your feet touch the floor, before the day has handed you any evidence of anything, say inwardly, thank you. Thank you for my wholeness. Thank you for my abundance. Thank you for the infinite intelligence that is working in every detail of my life right now. Not as a ritual, as a knowing. As the quiet confidence of someone who has already settled this matter in their deeper mind and is now simply living forward from that settled place. And let me tell you what happens when you do this consistently. Not all at once, not dramatically in most cases, though sometimes it is dramatic, but gradually, then suddenly your outer world begins to shift. People appear who carry exactly what you need. Doors open that logic cannot explain. Opportunities arise from directions you never anticipated because you stopped limiting your good to the specific channel you could consciously imagine and allowed infinite intelligence to deliver it through whatever channel was most perfect and most efficient. Your subconscious mind is connected to everything. It has access to every person, every resource, every solution that relates to your desire. But it can only work from the impression you give it. Give it the impression of lack, and it finds more lack everywhere it looks. Give it the impression of wholeness, and it begins to find the people, the circumstances, the synchronicities, the open doors that lead you there. My dear friend, I want to close with this. You have not been forgotten. You have not been passed over. You have not been judged unworthy of your good. The infinite intelligence that created this universe and placed within you the capacity to think, to feel, to imagine, and to know. That intelligence does not play favorites. It does not grant healing to some and withhold it from others. It does not send abundance to the deserving and leave the rest in lack. It responds to consciousness. It responds to feeling. It responds to the state you inhabit in your deeper mind, and you have the power, right now, tonight, to change that state. Not by working harder, not by praying longer, not by becoming more worthy or more spiritual or more disciplined in ways that exhaust you. Simply by shifting from asking to knowing, from wanting to having, from the feeling of the problem to the feeling of the solution already complete. Helen, the schoolteacher I told you about at the beginning, came back to see me 6 weeks after our first conversation. She walked differently. She held herself differently. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I do not fully understand what happened, but I stopped asking. I stopped begging. I started lying down at night and feeling what it felt like to wake up without pain. Just the feeling of it. And 3 weeks ago I woke up and the pain was less. Not gone entirely, but less. And it has been less every week since. And what is strange is that I feel different even on the days when some pain remains. Because I know that my body is whole in divine mind. And that knowing is the most peaceful thing I have ever felt." I said to her, "Helen, that knowing is not the beginning of your healing. That knowing is the healing, expressing itself in the only direction it can move, which is outward, into your body, into your experience, into your life. This is the divine method, not asking, knowing. Begin tonight. The infinite intelligence within you has been waiting, not to be convinced, but simply to be trusted. Now I want to go even deeper with you, because what I have shared so far is the foundation. And the foundation is essential. But there is a layer beneath the foundation that most teachers never reach. And it is in this deeper layer that the real transformation lies. It is the layer where knowing becomes not something you do at night before sleep, but something you are. Something so woven into the fabric of your daily consciousness that it stops being a practice and becomes a state of being. And when you reach that state, when knowing becomes your natural frequency rather than something you deliberately generate, your life does not just improve in one area. It transforms across every area simultaneously, because the subconscious mind does not compartmentalize. When you shift the dominant feeling of your consciousness, everything your consciousness touches begins to change. Let me tell you about a man named Elliot. Elliot was 58 years old, and he came to me not with one problem, but with what he described as a life that had simply gone grey. He was not in crisis. He was not facing bankruptcy or illness, or the kind of dramatic suffering that drives most people to seek help. He was facing something quieter and in many ways more insidious. He was facing a life that had become completely and utterly flat. He had a stable job, a comfortable home. His health was reasonable. His marriage was functional. But he told me, "Dr. Murphy, I wake up every morning and I feel nothing. Not pain, not joy, just nothing, like I am watching my own life through glass, like I am present for it but not in it. And I have felt this way for so long that I have started to wonder if this is simply what life is. If I expected too much when I was young and this is the correction." I listened to him carefully. And then I asked him something that surprised him. I said, "Elliot, what was the last thing you knew? Not hoped, not wanted knew." He thought for a long time. He finally said, "I cannot remember." And I said, "Then I know exactly what has happened to you. You have lost contact with the deepest part of yourself, the part that is connected to infinite intelligence, the part that does not operate from logic or from evidence or from what the world tells you is reasonable to expect. You have lived so long from the surface of your mind, from the analytical, evidence-based, show-me-first part of your consciousness, that you have cut yourself off from the creative, generative, infinitely powerful deeper mind that is the real source of everything alive in a human life." Elliot looked at me and said, "How do I get back there?" And that is the question I want to answer for you now. Because many of you listening are not in dramatic crisis. Many of you have simply gone grey, have simply lost that inner aliveness, that sense that life is responding to you, moving with you, conspiring on your behalf. And the path back is exactly what I have been teaching, but at a deeper level. It is not just about impressing your subconscious with a specific desire. It is about restoring your fundamental relationship with the infinite intelligence within you. It is about remembering, truly remembering at the level of feeling that you are not a small, isolated, vulnerable human being hoping that a distant God will occasionally intervene in your circumstances. You are an expression of infinite intelligence itself. The power that created galaxies is the same power that beats your heart right now without your instruction, that heals a cut on your finger without your guidance, that grows a child from 2 cells into a complete human being without your conscious management. That power is not outside you, it is you, at the deepest level of what you are. And when you live from the awareness of that truth, when you feel it not as a theological concept, but as a lived reality, your entire relationship with prayer, with desire, with life itself, changes completely. I told Elliot to do something different from what I usually prescribe. I said, "For the next 30 days, I do not want you to pray for anything specific. I want you to spend 10 minutes every night before sleep simply feeling connected, not to a specific outcome, not to a specific desire, simply connected. Feel the infinite intelligence within you as a living presence. Feel it as the source of your breath, of your heartbeat, of your capacity to think and love and create. Feel it not as something you are reaching toward, but as something you already are. Just feel the connection, the aliveness of it, the vast, quiet, inexhaustible presence of it. That is all." Elliot was skeptical in the way that thoughtful, analytical people often are. But he tried it. He came back to me 5 weeks later, and I want to tell you what he said, because it is one of the most beautiful things I have heard in 30 years of this work. He said, "Dr. Murphy, something very strange happened. In the third week, I was sitting in my garden early in the morning, which I never do. I am not a garden person, but something drew me out there. And I was just sitting in the quiet, and I felt something I have not felt since I was perhaps 7 years old. I felt that everything was going to be more than all right, not because anything had changed. Nothing had changed. But I felt, from somewhere underneath all my thoughts and worries and practicalities, I felt that I was held, that there was something beneath me that was not going to drop me, and I started to cry. Not from sadness, from relief. From the relief of remembering something I had forgotten so long ago that I did not even know I had forgotten it. His marriage shifted in the weeks that followed, not because they went to counseling or had difficult conversations, but because Elliot changed. He became present in a way he had not been for years. His wife responded to that presence. Warmth returned between them without either of them trying to manufacture it. His work, which he had been doing mechanically for years, began to interest him again. New possibilities appeared within the same role he had occupied for a decade. Not because his circumstances changed first, because he changed first, and then his circumstances had no choice but to respond. This is what I mean when I say that knowing must become what you are rather than what you do. Because when it becomes what you are, it does not just improve the one thing you were praying about, it improves everything. It improves everything because everything in your life is a reflection of your dominant state of consciousness. And when that state shifts at the level of identity, at the level of who you fundamentally feel yourself to be, the reflection shifts everywhere simultaneously. Now I want to talk about something that no one talks about enough. I want to talk about the moments when the knowing breaks down. Because it will. I want you to be prepared for this so that when it happens you do not interpret it as evidence that the method has failed. You interpret it correctly, as a natural part of the process. There will be mornings when you wake up and the fear is louder than the faith. There will be days when the outer circumstances press against you with such force and such immediacy that maintaining the inner state of knowing feels not just difficult but almost dishonest. The bill arrives and it is real. The diagnosis is confirmed and it is real. The relationship ends and it is real. And in those moments, the idea of sitting quietly and feeling abundant or whole or loved can feel almost insulting to the severity of what you are facing. I understand that. I have been there myself. Every person I have ever worked with has been there. And here is what I have learned and what I want you to carry with you. You do not have to maintain perfect knowing every moment of every day. That is not the standard. The standard is simply this, that your dominant state, the state you return to most consistently, the state you fall asleep in most nights, the state you set your consciousness in most mornings, is the state of knowing rather than the state of asking. You will have moments of doubt. Return. You will have hours of fear. Return. You will have days when the old feeling of lack or pain or loneliness floods back in with everything it has. Feel it. Do not pretend it is not there, but then return. The return is the practice. The persistence of the return is what impresses the subconscious deeply enough to override the old pattern. And every time you return, you are not starting over. You are going deeper. Every return is another layer of the new impression. Every return is another drop of water on the stone, and the stone will yield. It always yields. I want to tell you about one more person before I give you the final piece of this teaching. Her name was Grace, and she was 67 years old when she came to see me. She had recently lost her husband of 41 years. And she was not looking for a manifestation or a transformation or an improvement in her circumstances. She was looking for something much more fundamental. She was looking for a reason to continue being interested in her own life. She said to me, "Dr. Murphy, I have read your books. I understand the principle intellectually, but I am sitting here telling you honestly that I cannot feel anything good right now. I cannot generate the feeling of abundance or wholeness or joy. Those feelings are simply not available to me at this moment. And if this method requires feeling good in order to work, then I have nothing to work with. I want you to hear what I said to Grace because it may be the most important thing I say today. I said, Grace, I am not going to ask you to feel joy right now. I am not going to ask you to feel abundant or healed or whole. What I am going to ask you to feel is something much smaller and much more honest. I want you to feel the one true thing that is available to you in this moment, and that is this: that you are still here, that the infinite intelligence within you, the same intelligence that has sustained you through 67 years of a full and complicated life, is still present, still operating, still holding you. You do not need to feel happy to feel held, and feeling held is enough. It is enough to begin with. It is enough to work from. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there were tears on her face. She said, yes, that I can feel. That is true. And I said, then begin there. Begin with the one true feeling that is available, and let it grow from there. Over the following months, Grace did not become a different person. She remained a woman who had loved deeply and lost profoundly. But she became a woman who was genuinely present in her own life again. She began to teach a reading program for adults in her community. She reconnected with her grandchildren in a way she had not when her husband was alive, and the business of their life together had crowded those connections out. She told me 8 months later, I did not find a reason to be interested in my life, Dr. Murphy. I found that I was the reason, that the infinite intelligence within me was not finished with me. And that feeling, that single feeling of still being held, was the seed that everything else grew from. This is the final piece I want to leave you with. You do not need to be in a perfect state to begin. You do not need to have mastered your mind or conquered your doubts or eliminated your fear. You do not need to feel abundant if you are genuinely in poverty right now. You do not need to feel perfectly healthy if your body is genuinely in pain. You need only find the one true feeling that is available to you in this moment. The one honest, genuine, real feeling that points even slightly in the direction of wholeness. Maybe it is the feeling of still being here. Maybe it is the feeling of having asked this question, of having sought this understanding, which itself is evidence that the infinite intelligence within you is alive and reaching. Maybe it is simply the feeling of one good breath. Begin there. Impress your subconscious with that one true feeling tonight. And tomorrow night, find the feeling that is 1 degree warmer, 1 degree more whole, 1 degree closer to knowing you are not climbing a mountain all at once. You are taking 1 step tonight, and then 1 step tomorrow, and then 1 step the night after. And each step is a real step. Each impression is a real impression. And the subconscious is receiving every single one. The divine method of receiving is not a technique for the spiritually advanced. It is not reserved for people who have already figured out how to feel good all the time. It is available to you exactly as you are right now, in whatever state you are in, with whatever pain you are carrying, with whatever doubt is sitting in the room with you as you listen to this. The infinite intelligence within you does not require you to be perfect before it will work with you. It requires only that you turn toward it, that you choose, even imperfectly, even inconsistently, to impress it with the direction of wholeness rather than the direction of lack, to choose knowing over asking, even when the knowing feels fragile, even when it is the size of a seed, because you know what a seed becomes when it is planted in the right soil and given consistent care. You know exactly what it becomes. Plant yours tonight. I will be here when it blooms. Now there is something I have not yet addressed, and I want to address it directly because I know it is sitting with some of you. It is the question that the more theologically minded among you have been holding since the beginning of this conversation. You are thinking, Dr. Murphy, this sounds like it is replacing God with the mind. It sounds like you are taking the divine out of prayer and replacing it with psychology. And I want to meet that concern with complete honesty and complete care, because it deserves both. What I am teaching you today does not diminish God. It does not reduce the divine to a mental technique. It does not replace faith with self-help philosophy. What it does is give you a more accurate and more intimate understanding of how God actually works in a human life. You see, Most of us were given a picture of God as a being who exists somewhere above and beyond us, a being we must reach upward toward, a being we must convince, petition, persuade, a being who listens to our prayers and then decides, based on criteria we do not fully understand, whether to grant them or withhold them. And I say this with great compassion because I was given that same picture. We all were. But that picture, however well-intentioned the people who gave it to us, is incomplete, and its incompleteness has caused more spiritual suffering than almost anything else I can name. Because when you pray to a God who is entirely outside of you, you are always at a distance from your own good. You are always waiting for something external to move toward you. You are always in the position of the beggar rather than the inheritor. But the scripture itself tells us something different. It tells us that the kingdom of God is within you, not above you, not beyond you, within you. It tells us that we are made in the image and likeness of the divine, not as a poetic compliment, as a literal description of our nature. It tells us that the Spirit of God dwells in us, not visits occasionally, dwells permanently, continuously. Right now, as you sit and listen to these words, when I teach you to impress your subconscious mind with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, I am not teaching you to bypass God. I am teaching you to work with God at the most intimate level possible. Because your subconscious mind is the avenue through which infinite intelligence, which is God, expresses itself in your individual life. It is the meeting place between the human and the divine. It is where your finite conscious mind touches the infinite creative power that sustains all of existence. When you impress your subconscious with knowing, with the feeling of wholeness, with the acceptance of your good as already given, you are not doing something instead of praying. You are praying in the most precise and powerful way a human being can pray. You are praying the way that actually works. You are praying in alignment with the law that God established when God created a universe that operates by principle rather than by mood. I want you to sit with that for a moment. God created a universe that operates by principle. The sun does not decide each morning whether it feels like rising. Gravity does not take days off. A seed planted in good soil does not sometimes grow and sometimes refuse based on factors no one can predict. These things operate by law. Consistently, reliably, without favoritism, and the law of mind, the law of consciousness, the law that says your inner state creates your outer conditions, is just as reliable, just as consistent, just as universal as any physical law in creation. It is not more spiritual to ignore this law than it is to ignore gravity. It is simply less accurate. And less accurate always produces less result. So when I say to you, stop asking and start knowing, I am not saying stop trusting God. I am saying trust God more completely. Trust God enough to believe that the infinite intelligence within you is already fully prepared to deliver every good thing your heart contains. Trust God enough to stop begging and start receiving. Trust God enough to take Him at His word when He says ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. Because that promise is not a maybe, it is a law. And like all laws, it operates from the inside out. The asking that produces receiving is not the asking of petition. It is the asking of acceptance. It is the inner turning toward your good with the settled conviction that it is already yours. Now I want to go somewhere very specific with you. I want to talk about healing, because of all the areas of human life where this principle is most urgently needed and most dramatically demonstrated. Healing is the one that moves me most deeply. I have sat with people who were given no hope by medicine, people whose doctors had done everything available to them and had gently, kindly told them that there was nothing more to be done. And I have watched some of those people recover in ways that their doctors could not explain. Not all of them. I want to be honest with you. Not all of them recovered physically, but every single one of them who genuinely applied this principle recovered something. They recovered their peace. They recovered their dignity. They recovered their sense of being held by something larger than their diagnosis. And in many cases, that inner recovery preceded and produced a physical recovery that no one had predicted. Let me tell you about a man named Cornelius. He was 61 years old, and he had been diagnosed with a condition that his doctors described as progressive and irreversible. He had been told to get his affairs in order. His wife had been told to prepare. When he came to see me, he was not panicked. He had moved through the panic and come out the other side into a kind of grey acceptance that was in some ways more concerning to me than the panic would have been. He said, "Dr. Murphy, I am a practical man. I am not someone who believes in miracles, but my wife asked me to come and I love my wife. So here I am," I said. "I appreciate your honesty, Cornelius. I am going to be equally honest with you. I am not going to promise you a miracle. I am not going to tell you that if you practice what I teach you that your diagnosis will reverse. I cannot promise you that. What I can tell you is this. The infinite intelligence within your body right now knows nothing of your diagnosis. It knows only perfect function, perfect harmony, perfect expression. Every cell in your body is being instructed right now by an intelligence so precise and so powerful that no human technology comes close to replicating it. That intelligence has been healing your body your entire life without your awareness. Every time you cut yourself and the wound closed, that was not medicine. That was the infinite intelligence within you doing what it always does when given the right conditions. My question for you is not whether that intelligence can help you. My question is whether you are willing to stop impressing your deeper mind with the image of a progressive and irreversible condition and start impressing it with the image of a body that is being perfectly restored by the same intelligence that has sustained you for 61 years. Cornelius looked at me for a long time. Then he said something I will never forget. He said, "What do I have to lose?" And I said, "Only the diagnosis." He smiled at that. It was the first time I saw him smile. I gave him a simple practice. Every night before sleep, I told him not to visualize healing, not to imagine cancer cells dying or damaged tissue repairing, because the conscious mind does not know how healing works, and its interference can be more hindrance than help. Instead, I told him simply to feel what it feels like to be a man whose body is on his side, a man whose inner intelligence is working perfectly and powerfully on his behalf. Not a man being healed, a man who is whole. The distinction matters enormously. A man being healed is still in the process, still in the problem, still waiting for the outcome. A man who is whole is already there, already complete, already in the state that the subconscious can work from. Cornelius did this every night for 4 months. His doctors at his next evaluation were, to use their own word, puzzled. The progression they had anticipated had not occurred. In fact, certain markers had moved in the opposite direction from what their model predicted. They adjusted their prognosis, not to certainty of recovery, but to genuine uncertainty about the trajectory. And for Cornelius, genuine uncertainty after being told to prepare for the end was itself a kind of miracle. He told me afterward, "Dr. Murphy, I do not know what will happen with my body, but I know something now that I did not know before. I know that I am not at the mercy of a diagnosis. I know that there is something within me that is larger than any label a medical chart can put on me, and that knowing has given me back something I thought I had permanently lost. It gave him back himself, and from that restored self, life continued to surprise him in ways he had stopped expecting it to. I want to now address something that is crucial for anyone who has been practicing this principle and has not yet seen the results they expected. Because I know you are out there. I know some of you have been listening to teachings like this for months or even years. You have done the visualizations. You have said the affirmations. You have practiced the gratitude. And you are still looking at circumstances that do not reflect what you have been impressing. And there is a discouragement in that experience that I do not want to minimize. It is real, it is painful, and it deserves a real answer. Here is the real answer. There are only 2 reasons why the principle appears not to be working. The first is that you are impressing your subconscious with the new state at night, and then spending most of your waking hours impressing it with the old state. You do 10 minutes of knowing before sleep, and then 16 hours of worrying, doubting, rehearsing the problem, discussing the problem with others, reading about the problem, checking for evidence that the problem is changing. And the subconscious simply works from the dominant impression. 10 minutes of knowing cannot override 16 hours of doubt if the 16 hours are charged with stronger emotion than the 10 minutes. The solution is not to do the 10 minutes differently. The solution is to begin tending your consciousness throughout the day, to begin catching yourself in the act of returning to the old state and making the choice, deliberately and consistently, to return to the new one. This does not have to be dramatic. It does not require hours of meditation. It requires only the persistent, gentle, disciplined habit of noticing where your feeling is and choosing again and again throughout the day to bring it back to the state of knowing. The second reason is subtler, and it is the one that most people miss entirely. Some of you are impressing your subconscious with the right feeling, but you are simultaneously holding a belief that you do not deserve what you are praying for. It is not a conscious belief. You would not say it out loud if I asked you, but it is there, sitting in the deeper layers of your subconscious, planted years or decades ago by an experience or a word or a repeated message that told you that you were somehow less than, that people like you do not get to have the things you are reaching for, that there is something about your specific history or your specific failures or your specific nature that puts certain good things outside your rightful reach. And this belief acts like a ceiling. You impress the new feeling, and it rises up through your consciousness, and then it hits that ceiling and comes back down. The new impression cannot fully take hold because the old belief about your worthiness is blocking it. And the way through this is not to fight the old belief. Fighting it gives it more energy. The way through it is simply to replace it with a truth that is older and deeper and more fundamental than any message you were given by any human experience. And that truth is this: you are an expression of infinite intelligence. You did not create yourself. You were created by the same power that created everything that exists. And that power does not create anything that is unworthy of its own goodness. The unworthiness is not real. It is a conclusion you drew from limited information in circumstances that did not reflect the full truth of what you are. Begin to impress your subconscious not just with the specific desire, but with the foundational truth beneath it. I am worthy of my good, not because I have earned it, because I am made of it. Because the source from which I came knows nothing of unworthiness, and therefore neither do I at my deepest level. Let me give you one final practice to carry with you, one that addresses this question of worthiness at the root. Every morning before you rise and every evening as you settle toward sleep, I want you to add one sentence to whatever else you are practicing. Just one sentence, spoken inwardly with as much feeling as you can bring to it. And the sentence is this: I am an expression of infinite intelligence, and my good is natural to me. Not earned by me, natural to me. The way a tree's growth is natural to it. The way a river's flow is natural to it. The way the sun's rising is natural to it. Your good is not something you have to fight for, deserve your way into, or impress God enough to receive. It is natural to you. It is the most natural thing in the universe for the infinite intelligence that made you to express itself fully through you. In health, in abundance, in love, in purpose, in peace. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is simply agreeing with the truth of your own nature at the deepest level possible. My dear friend, we have traveled a long way together today. And I want to close not with a summary, but with a sending. I want to send you back into your life carrying something you did not have when you arrived. Not a technique, not a formula, but a remembering of what you actually are and what is therefore actually available to you. You are not small. You are not forgotten. You are not at the mercy of circumstances that are larger than you. You are the meeting place of the human and the divine. You are the point at which infinite intelligence enters this particular life, this particular body, this particular story. And from that meeting place, from that point of contact between the finite and the infinite, everything is possible. not someday now. Stop asking. Start knowing. Stop reaching outward for what is already within. Stop waiting for evidence before you allow yourself to feel the truth. Feel the truth first. Feel it tonight. Feel it with whatever capacity you have available in this moment. And trust, with the quiet, unshakable trust of someone who has finally remembered what they are, that the infinite intelligence within you will do what it has always done and what it will always do. It will take the impression you give it, and it will build a world from it. Build carefully. Build from knowing. Build from the felt reality of your good already given, already present, already yours. That is the divine method. That has always been the divine method, and it has never, not once in the history of this universe, failed to work when it was genuinely and persistently applied. Go now and apply it. I will be with you in the teaching, and the infinite intelligence within you will be with you in everything else. 4:52 p.m. And so I want to leave you with something that is not a technique and not a teaching. I want to leave you with a truth so simple and so complete that if you carry nothing else from everything we have shared today, this alone will be enough to change the entire direction of your life. Are you ready for it? Here it is. You have never been without your good, not for a single moment of your entire life, not in the darkest night, not in the deepest loss, not in the longest season of unanswered prayer. Your good has never been withheld from you. It has been within you, always, completely, without interruption. Waiting not for God to release it, but for you to receive it. Waiting not for your circumstances to improve, but for your consciousness to turn toward it. This is the truth that Helen discovered when the pain began to lift. This is the truth that Thomas discovered when the business began to breathe again. This is the truth that Priya discovered when love arrived not from somewhere out there, but from the wholeness she had cultivated within. This is the truth that Elliot rediscovered sitting in his garden on an ordinary morning, feeling held by something he had forgotten was always there. This is the truth that Grace found in the smallest possible place, in the single honest feeling of still being here, still being sustained, still being held by an intelligence that had never once let her go even when she could not feel it. The truth is the same for all of them, and it is the same for you. You came to this teaching today carrying something. Maybe it was a prayer that has gone unanswered for so long that you have almost stopped believing it matters. Maybe it was a body that has been giving you grief for years. Maybe it was a financial situation that feels so locked and so immovable that the idea of abundance seems almost laughable from where you are standing. Maybe it was a loneliness so deep and so old that you have begun to mistake it for your personality rather than recognizing it as simply a condition, a temporary condition that your consciousness can change. Whatever you carried in with you today, I want you to set it down for a moment, not permanently. Not in denial. Just for this moment, set it down and just feel the extraordinary fact that you are here. That's something within you reach for this. That's some part of you deeper than your doubt, wiser than your fear, more persistent than your discouragement, led you to this moment and this understanding. That reaching is not an accident. That reaching is the infinite intelligence within you asserting itself, saying, I am still here. I have not given up on this life. I have not given up on you. And I am ready, the moment you turn toward me with even the smallest genuine feeling of trust, to begin building something new from exactly where you are. I have been teaching these principles for more than 30 years, and in 30 years I have never seen this fail, not once. I have seen it work slowly, and I have seen it work suddenly. I have seen it produce quiet, steady improvement, and I have seen it produce what the world can only call miracles. I have seen it work for people of deep religious faith and for people who came to me as confirmed skeptics. I have seen it work for the young and the old, the educated and the unschooled, the wealthy and the desperately poor, the physically strong and the medically terminal. It does not discriminate. It cannot discriminate, because it is law. And law by its very nature applies to everyone equally. The only variable is the consciousness of the person applying it. And consciousness, unlike circumstances, unlike bank accounts, unlike medical diagnoses, unlike relationship histories, consciousness can be changed. Tonight, by you. In the 5 minutes before sleep, when you close your eyes and choose, deliberately and faithfully, to feel the truth of your good rather than the reality of your lack. I want to speak now directly to the person who has been listening to everything I have shared today and feels a quiet stirring inside, not excitement necessarily. Something quieter than excitement. Something that feels more like recognition. Like hearing something you somehow already knew but had forgotten. If that is you, if something in you is saying, yes, this is true, I have always known this was true, then I want you to honor that recognition. Do not dismiss it as wishful thinking. Do not let the analytical part of your mind talk you out of it before you have even given it a fair trial. That recognition is not you convincing yourself of something false. That recognition is the deepest part of you confirming something real. It is the infinite intelligence within you saying, yes, this is the way. This is how I work. This is what you have been missing. Trust that recognition. It is the most reliable signal you have ever been given. And I want to speak to the person who has been listening and feels not recognition but resistance. Who feels skeptical, maybe even a little frustrated, who thinks this all sounds too simple or too good or too convenient to be genuinely true. I want to speak to you with equal directness. Your skepticism is not a problem. Your resistance is not an obstacle. In fact, your very presence here, the fact that you are still listening, still engaging, still willing to hear this out even through your doubt, that itself is a form of the reaching I described. Something in you brought you here. Something in you is not yet ready to give up on the possibility that there is a better way. Honor that something. You do not need to believe everything I have said today in order to try one thing tonight. Just one thing. Lie down before sleep. Find one feeling, any feeling that points even slightly in the direction of your good. The feeling of one true breath. The feeling of having sought understanding. The feeling of the faintest, most fragile flicker of hope that something could be different. Impress your subconscious with that one honest feeling tonight. And then tomorrow night, find one feeling that is 1 degree warmer. That is all. That is where every transformation I have ever witnessed began. Not with perfect faith, not with complete understanding, but with one honest feeling, consistently offered, persistently returned to, until the subconscious received it deeply enough to begin building from it. This is the invitation I extend to you now, not to believe everything immediately, not to master this in a day, but to begin, to take the one step that is available to you tonight, to plant the one seed that is honest and real and available in this moment. Because here is what I know after 30 years of watching this principle work in thousands of lives. The subconscious does not require perfection. It requires sincerity. It does not require that you feel completely whole before it will work with you. It requires only that you turn toward wholeness with genuine feeling, even if that feeling is small, even if it is fragile, even if it is mixed with doubt. Turn toward it. Return to it, persist in it, and the law will do the rest. The law always does the rest. It cannot do otherwise. It is its nature to build from the impression you give it, and it is your nature, your deepest, most fundamental nature, to be the channel through which infinite intelligence expresses its goodness in this world. Before I close, I want us to do something together. I want to guide you through a brief inner practice right now. Not tomorrow, not tonight before sleep, though you will do it then too. Right now, wherever you are as you listen to these words, I want you to take one slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let the effort of the day release for just this moment. And now, without straining, without reaching, I want you to feel, somewhere beneath all your thoughts and worries and questions, the quiet, steady presence of something that has been with you your entire life. The presence that keeps your heart beating, the presence that heals every wound your body has ever suffered, the presence that has carried you through every difficulty you thought would break you and has brought you to this exact moment, still breathing, still reaching, still here. Feel that presence now. not as a concept, as a felt reality, as something genuinely alive within you right now in this moment. That presence is infinite intelligence. That presence is the divine. That presence is the source from which all your good flows and has always flowed and will always flow. You are not separate from it. You never have been. You never could be. You are made of it. And because you are made of it, your good is not something you need to earn or beg for or convince anyone to give you. Your good is simply what happens when you stop blocking the natural expression of what you are. Feel that now. Feel it as fully as you can in this moment and make a quiet inner decision, not a dramatic declaration, not a loud announcement, a quiet, settled, personal decision. From this day forward, I am going to stop asking for my good and start receiving it. I am going to stop praying from lack and start knowing from wholeness. I am going to stop looking outward for what has always been within. And tonight, and every night, I am going to lie down and impress the most powerful creative medium I possess with the truth of my good already given, already present, already mine. That decision made sincerely in this moment is itself an impression on your subconscious. It is itself a seed. And seeds, when planted in the right soil with consistent care, grow into everything. Go now. Go gently. Go with the quiet confidence of someone who has remembered something important. Something they always knew, but had simply, temporarily forgotten. Your good is not coming. It is here. It has always been here. In the infinite intelligence within you that knows no lack, no limitation, no disease, no poverty, no loneliness, no failure, only wholeness, only abundance, only the perfect and complete expression of everything you were created to be. Claim it, receive it, know it, and watch with the unhurried confidence of someone who understands the law as your world arranges itself around the truth you have finally, fully chosen to accept. This has been my gift to you today. And your life, lived from this new knowing, will be your gift to the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for reaching. And thank you for remembering.